Rest in peace to Nipsey Hussle, man. Rest in peace to the brother. And my prayers go out to the brother's children, his lady. I want y'all to consider something. All of y'all that's into the death culture. And shout out to my brother Sarnetta, because we was just talking about it. And I encourage y'all to check his last show out. We was talking about this death culture that we done dragged all the way with us into 2019 from the 1950s and 60s. We done dragged this bullshit like a ball and chain with us in 19. A way that's been proven, just like most of us grew up not being addicted to crack. You know, millions of us were around crack, watched crack be sold day in and day out, and never once became a victim of that lifestyle. I want y'all to understand this, that the young kids today, although very talented, very strong, very intelligent, are blind. And it's your job, our job, my job, as the older brothers and sisters, to point out the changes from generation to generation, because those are the things that these young people are blind about. I'll show you. Watch. Not only in my generation, most of us grew up in houses, homes. Say that again. In my generation, and many of y'all's, most of you all, you grew up in houses, homes, in a neighborhood, non-gentrified. Some of y'all even owned land, owned your houses, had inheritances within your communities, your community. But over the years, over the decades, as times change, as the economy change, as the real estate markets change, and as the intellect of our people change, there is gentrification on a mass scale that has affected not only the gang culture, aka the death culture, but our black communities as a whole, from coast to coast. Here it is. Most of you all that grew up in neighborhoods, that grew up in a house, your parents had a mortgage or inherited a house. Most of you actually had a neighborhood to defend, a neighborhood to claim, a neighborhood to call your own in some way. But the truth is, today, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, into the 2000s, almost 60 goddamn years later, gentrification has slowly crept into the black community and has disbanded not only your gangs, but your mentality, community. Not only your gangs, but your mentality as a community, as relates to home ownership, real estate, politics, economy, excuse me. When you have a neighborhood that grew up predominantly, even as relates to the death culture, Crip or blood or this or that, within that culture was a family construct and a communal construct, whether it be mutated or righteous or fruitful. There is a communal construct at the base level. But when you look 50 years out from that, and even the inception of the gang culture, death, how many of you all own homes today? A lot of y'all that's gangbanging in the so-called remnants of the hood don't even own the house that your mothers grew up in the hood that you grew up claiming, that made you whatever you are. Huh? If you look all over LA, you'll understand this. That gentrification, not only through the 80s and the 90s, but even today, and they're offering you bigger sums of money just to get you Negroes out so they can pave it all over and create a source of economy, for their communities, for their families. The youth don't realize today that the gang culture is nothing but a death culture unless you got something to protect, something to own, something to call your community, something to say, my mother lives there, and that's where I'm going to protect or die for. 90% of you, I would bet, probably more, live in a place that is either some new age, new school, food, gang fused area, or you live in a red line district filled with projects and meth addicts and crack addicts historically. But the remainder of you that are paying rent, and that's really the bulk of our people, paying rent, working a job, moving here and there as life dictates. You have no goddamn hood to connect to and to claim to live or die for. Did you realize that? And did you realize that your thoughts of connecting and having something to live or die for and to be martyred about should be your own community, your own kingdom, your own family, even your own person and your own personal wealth and well-being. It's 50 years and millions of deaths out from the true knowledge of what people have done to the black community in this country. Got y'all all living in tenement buildings, and you don't see it. It's not the young people's fault. It's our fault that watched it get this way, and even some of us that sold our parents' houses. I didn't, but some of y'all did. And you fed the gentrification plot. And you wonder why all of the senseless violence is even getting more senseless. Couple that, a scattered people within a captivity. You're twice. Couple that with social media, which is like the worst thing, like the worst ingredient to a bad, destructive powder keg. I told y'all before, never get into an argument in front of a gang of people. Because when you do that, you'll fight and die and kill or murder to be right in front of these people. Listen, social engineering, eugenics, social evolution, gentrification, and your own fraternal genocide is becoming the thing that is cultured or even propagated by most of our youth. Why? Because they can't see a goddamn thing. They can't see nothing but money, and their stomachs growling. They can't see nothing but people that have too much and people that have too little, and how wide the gap is. But they can't see that all of that has been created for them. In closing, it's your job. It's your job, older brothers, older sisters, to teach the youth these very important lessons of observation. And answer the questions, the hard questions. Yeah, you gang, you this, you that. But what are you dying for? You don't even have a hood anymore. We'll be back. Peace.